Hi, I guess that most people have already chosen their TOK essay for May 26, but I'm still getting a lot of students and their parents asking questions such as, which TOK essay should I write? Which TOK title is the easiest? Will they mark more generously if I choose a hard essay title? Is the maths question the hardest question? And so on and so on. So today on TOK Today, I will answer these questions and many more. Welcome to TOK Today. My name is Daniel and I've been teaching TOK for 20 years. And every year students have asked what the easiest TOK essay question is. Now, as every good TOK student knows, experience is subjective and contextual. So what may be easy for one student may not be quite as easy for another student. And anyway, do we necessarily want to only do things that are easy? So let's briefly look at each question in turn in terms of what could make it easy and what could make it challenging or be a potential pitfall. So question one is, does it matter in the production of knowledge that observation is an essential but flawed tool? Discuss with reference to natural sciences and one other area of knowledge. Now this question has an assumption in it. The assumption is that observation is an essential but flawed tool. Now there may be a temptation for some students to talk about this assumption, but that's not what the question is about. The question is about the words, does it matter? So to do well on this question, you need to focus on what matters in the production of knowledge. Now, if explaining what matters in the production of knowledge is difficult for you, then this might be a challenging question. But if you've got some clear ideas about what matters in the production of knowledge, then this question could be fairly straightforward. Dare I say it? Easy. Now, question two is the ever popular. To what extent do you agree that doubt is central to the pursuit of knowledge? And this gives you a free rein as to which areas of knowledge you can discuss. Now, this could make this question a bit more accessible or even possibly easier for some students, as long as you choose your areas of knowledge carefully. Choose areas of knowledge that allow you to give contrasting knowledge arguments regarding the role of doubt in the pursuit of knowledge. Now, obviously, this is going to vary from student to student and from area of knowledge to area of knowledge and from example to example. So, for example, one student may be able to find good contrasting arguments regarding doubt in AOK history compared to AOK natural sciences, whilst another student may find contrasting arguments comparing maths with human sciences. It's finding a range of different arguments that's a challenge in this essay. A lot of the students that I'm working with have chosen this essay. It's really popular, but some of them are finding it difficult to develop different contrasting arguments. And just a word of advice, the wording in the question is to what extent is doubt central to the pursuit of knowledge? So you need to focus on that idea of doubt being central. Moving on to question three, which is the power of knowledge determined by the way in which it is conveyed? Discussed with reference to maths and one other area of knowledge. Now, obviously, the central theme of this question is how knowledge is conveyed and how that links to the power of knowledge. Don't be put off by the idea that this is the maths question. It doesn't actually require you to know how to do maths. It just asks you to reflect upon the power of mathematical knowledge and how mathematical knowledge is conveyed. So there are two big jobs arising from this question. The first is to describe how knowledge is conveyed in two AOKs, and the second is to define what could be meant by the power of knowledge in two AOKs. And there are no set definite answers to either of these tasks. The IB wants you to come up with your own descriptions, your own definitions, and your own explanations. And once you've done that, then you have to explore the different ways in which power and conveyance could be linked. Now, if you've got some strong ideas about how the conveyance of knowledge is linked to its power, then this question will be easy for you. If you don't have very many strong ideas, then this question may be more of a challenge. Now, talking about challenge, if you're finding your TOK essay difficult or you want more details about each essay, then check out the TOK Today videos on each specific essay. I've made 3 videos for each essay title this year. And if you're looking for even more help, then check out the detailed student guidance notes and all the different coaching services which are available on the TOK Today website. Please don't feel shy to press like, subscribe, comment and share. All are very much appreciated. Moving on to question 4, which is, can we only understand something to the extent that we understand its context in the acquisition of knowledge? Discussed with reference to any 2 areas of knowledge. So first of all, we have freedom as to which areas of knowledge we can use here. Just like question 2, now this could make question 4 easier if you have some good contrasting arguments for the role of context in understanding. However, it could make it more challenging if you're not sure how the role of context changes across AOKs. Now, if you're considering this question, then look carefully at the wording of the question. The particular words of interest here are, can we only understand something to the extent that... The words can we only place a limit on our understanding. Therefore, the question requires you to consider other ways of understanding things, ways other than context. Now, if you can think of ways of understanding things beyond their context, then this question will be accessible, maybe even easy for you. But if you can't think of ways of understanding something beyond its context, then this question may present some challenges for you. Question number 5 takes Pythagoras' claim that all things are numbers, and it asks to what extent you agree with this, with reference to the arts and human sciences. Now, obviously you have no freedom of choice of AOK. However, the arts and human sciences are very accessible AOKs, and you all study a subject within each of these AOKs. Now, lots of students tell me that they don't study an art subject because they don't do visual art, music, theatre, film or dance. However, you do all study Language A, either Language A Literature or Language A Language and Literature. And those are art subjects. So the study of literature, poetry, comics, other texts, and the use of words is studying an art subject. Now, this question asks you to consider whether you are able to quantify everything, or alternatively, it asks you whether the root of everything is numerical or quantifiable. Now, there are slightly different interpretations of what Pythagoras could mean by everything is numbers. For example, does he mean that the cause of everything is numerical, or that the experience of everything could be numerical, or that the constitution of everything is essentially numerical? You could interpret the question in any of these ways, and in many other ways, and as long as you develop valid knowledge arguments, you'll do well on this question, regardless of your interpretation. Now, personally, I love this question, but that doesn't mean that you have to love this question. It doesn't mean that it's the easiest question. It's just something that I'm interested in. And if you're interested in it, then it may be an easy question for you. Let's just pick up on that point of, are the examiners more generous with questions that are difficult? This question comes up quite a lot. Now, the short answer is no. I mean, when you start to look at it, the examiners don't think that any one question is any more difficult than any other question, and therefore they aren't going to give you more credit for one question over another just because of the question that you've chosen. You can do equally well on the question that's most popular as you can on the question that's least popular. You shouldn't really be thinking about things like, are the examiners going to be more generous? You should just be thinking about which question most interests me, which question do I feel like I have the most to talk about or to offer. Okay, let's move on to the final question. That's question 6. Question 6 asks us the extent to which interpretation is a reliable tool in the production of knowledge, and it asks us to consider that in reference to history and one other area of knowledge. Now, the first potential pitfall here is that having a good understanding of the methodology of history is virtually required to answer this question. I mean, the potential pitfall being that if you don't have a good understanding of the methodology of history, then the question's going to be a lot harder to answer. In short, the first thing that I ask students who want to choose this question is whether they study history. And if they don't, I ask them, are they willing to learn the methodology of history? Now, obviously, this doesn't mean that you can't do this question if you don't study history. It just means that you have to learn about the methodology of history. Okay, now the focus of this question is on the relationship between interpretation and reliability. It seems rather straightforward that interpretation is subjective and therefore it's not reliable. However, that's a bit of a crude and underdeveloped response. I mean, arguably all knowledge is interpretative. Even our assessment of reliability is interpretative. So in some ways, it's asking us to explain the threshold for determining something to be reliable. At what point do we label something as reliable? And this could vary according to a whole range of factors, including what knowledge is being produced, why it's being produced, who is it being produced for, who's doing the production, the context of the knowledge, its historical development, the framework within which it will be placed, etc., etc. There's a lot to explore with this question, and this is not the video to go into depth. That's the specialist video which I've put elsewhere on my channel. However, if the relationship between interpretation and reliability interests you and you have some views on it, then this could be an accessible question. I mean, it could be an easy question for you to answer. So, suffice to say, whether you find a TOK essay question easy or not very much depends upon your personal interests, your knowledge, and your other preferences. Rather than asking whether a question is easy, we may prefer to ask whether it will be useful, fulfilling, or even revelatory. Now, if you want more help with your TOK essay, then check out the videos on this channel or head over to the TOK Today website, toktoday.com, which has a bunch of ways to help you get the score you want in TOK. A bunch of ways. I find that phrase very funny. I always think like a bunch of bananas, yes, but a bunch of epistemological theories, less so. Anyway, I hope that today's video was helpful. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.